Be prepared. The next few days will hit exactly where it hurts, because that's the only way you'll finally change. Saturn just entered retrograde, and whether you're ready or not, your life is about to take a wild turn. What's one lesson you've recently had to face or know is coming? If you feel like sharing, drop it in the comments. You could even leave 777 along with it if you want to align yourself with the energy of this retrograde. And if you think you're in control right now, you're not, because something bigger has taken the wheel, and it's about to drive straight through everything in your life. This retrograde is a purge, and the first thing it's targeting is false comfort. Expect the rug to be ripped out from underneath you suddenly, layoffs with no warning, friends ghosting, that steady income, gone. Not because Saturn hates you, but because it's done watching you waste your life staying numb in routines you've outgrown. This is the kind of pain that saves you, the kind that doesn't feel good, but wakes you up. Some of you will feel like strangers in your own life, like you're being kicked out of the very story you wrote, but that's how Saturn rebuilds. Not by asking gently, by demolishing what was never real in the first place. And next, you'll be faced with a decision that could cost you your freedom. You can't be accepted and authentic at the same time anymore. This is the point of no return. Saturn is holding up a mirror, and what you see isn't filtered through likes, followers, or polite applause. It's raw, it's uncomfortable, and it's real. The version of you that plays by the rules, fits in, smiles on cue, and shrinks to be liked, that version is becoming unlivable. This retrograde forces a decision, your image or your soul, and you don't get to keep both. There's a fracture line opening between the life you present and the life you actually want. Maybe it's been silent so far, a gut feeling, a lingering resentment, the quiet exhaustion of living someone else's dream. But now, Saturn amplifies it. What was once a whisper becomes a demand. Choose the mask or choose the mission. Because the truth is, approval has become a cage. You're not chasing connection, you're performing for applause. You're not grounded, you're compliant. And the longer you try to hold both, being authentic while staying inoffensive, the more Saturn pushes. You'll notice it through rising tension in your relationships, breakdowns in communication, or sudden waves of emotional burnout. Something will snap. And if you don't make the choice, Saturn will. And when it does, the people who only like the performance will fall away like dead leaves. But this isn't punishment, it's liberation. Because what's coming next isn't about what others think of you, it's about what your karma thinks of you. Every shortcut you ever took is now billing you with interest. This is the chapter where everything you've buried starts to claw its way to the surface, not because the universe is punishing you, but because your own patterns are circling back with precision. That time you avoided a tough conversation, that promise you didn't keep, that dream you abandoned halfway through because it got uncomfortable, Saturn remembers. And now, it's time to collect. But here's the twist. It's not cosmic revenge. It's you, echoing back at yourself. The awkward delays, the sudden breakdowns, the weird synchronicities that make no logical sense, they're not random. They're consequences wrapped in coincidence. This retrograde is like a time loop, not because you're stuck, but because Saturn is replaying unfinished scenes. That job interview that keeps getting rescheduled, that person from your past who suddenly reappears, that opportunity that looked golden but somehow keeps slipping through your fingers. You're not cursed, you're being called out. Saturn doesn't punish, it reflects. So if life feels heavy, complicated, or unfair right now, the question isn't why is this happening to me? The question is, who did I become when I thought no one was watching. Because now, the watcher is you, and karma isn't some distant cosmic force, it's the wake you left behind. Saturn doesn't whisper. It exposes you in front of everyone. This is where the masks crack. The spotlight doesn't always land on the stage you want. Sometimes it finds you in the middle of your biggest bluff. And Saturn waits for that moment. Because this isn't just a retrograde, it's a purge of every false persona you've been hiding behind. If you've been faking it, Saturn is not letting you make it. People who've postured their way into positions of power, managers, mentors, influencers, even spiritual guides, are suddenly getting questioned, called out, and in many cases, exposed. Not privately, publicly, where it stings, where the illusion breaks. This isn't humiliation for the sake of cruelty. It's ego death as a rite of passage. That curated version of yourself you've been protecting, the "I've got it all figured out" facade, is becoming unmanageable. The cracks in your confidence, the pressure you've been hiding behind productivity, the shaky foundation beneath your success, all of it's surfacing. False confidence burns fast. Real power survives the fire. For some, this means your lies to yourself are now playing out in real time. You said you were happy. You said you were aligned. You said you could handle it. But your life isn't matching your words anymore, and Saturn's not letting you gaslight your own soul. This is also when the world stops clapping for your performance. People stop feeding your image. They want truth, not theatrics, not a highlight reel. And yeah, that fall from the pedestal can be brutal, but it's also sacred, because once the ego falls, the real self stands up. If you don't control your habits will control your downfall. Saturn doesn't care about your intentions, it cares about your systems. Right now, everything that's been done on autopilot, the late-night scrolling, the "I'll do it tomorrow" excuses, the numbing distractions you swore were harmless, they're becoming liabilities. Habits you thought you could hide, they're stepping into the driver's seat, and they're steering straight into chaos. This is the line in the sand. The version of you that coasted through life on half-discipline is done. You either lead your habits, or your habits lead your undoing. Let's be real. This is where overdrafts happen, where impulsive decisions spiral, where just one more drink turns into weeks of derailed goals, where indulgence becomes erosion. Because Saturn doesn't just test your willpower, it tests whether your actions are worthy of your future. You don't rise to your potential. You fall to your patterns. This isn't about perfection. Saturn isn't asking you to suddenly become some optimized robot, but it is forcing you to look, really look, at whether the way you live matches the life you say you want. Are you moving with intention or coasting in denial? Are your routines building your future or bleeding your energy dry? Because Saturn's retrograde takes the invisible consequences and makes them physical. You'll feel the tension in your body, the burnout in your brain, the weight of wasted time pressing down like gravity. It's not psychological, it's structural. This is the architecture of your own downfall or your evolution. And you don't get to skip this test. No one does. The ones who resist will spiral. The ones who reflect will rise. But there's no middle ground anymore. You either build discipline or watch your own comfort destroy you. You're surrounded by lessons dressed as people. Look closely. The arguments, the distance, the tension, none of it is random right now. Saturn is using the people around you as a curriculum. Every conversation, every subtle betrayal, every weird vibe from someone you thought you knew. It's a pop quiz on your growth. This is the part of the retrograde where your relationships become diagnostic tools. You're going to see exactly who supports your evolution and who subconsciously depends on your stagnation. Friends ghosting you? That's not abandonment, that's release. Family pushing your buttons like it's scripted? That's Saturn targeting your old emotional code. That one person who suddenly feels like a drain, even though they haven't changed. Saturn's showing you the energy you've normalized but never questioned. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next chapter. Some were only meant to teach you how to leave. You'll notice patterns repeating, conversations that feel oddly familiar, frustrations that seem too precise to be coincidence. That's Saturn flipping the mirror. That person who talks down to you, they reflect the part of you that still doubts yourself. The friend who always needs saving, they reveal your addiction to self-neglect. The people around you aren't problems, they're portals. And yeah, some of it will sting. People you thought were permanent may fall away. You'll feel disoriented. You might even mourn relationships that technically still exist, but feel like ghosts of their former selves. But understand this, Saturn isn't punishing you, it's pruning your life to make space for what actually aligns. The truth is, some of these relationships were karmic dead ends. Contracts that served their purpose but are now expiring. Holding on will only drag you back. Letting go is the upgrade. Even the betrayals, especially the betrayals, they're timed awakenings. Saturn doesn't just remove people to test your heart, it clears the static so you can finally hear yourself again. So next time someone triggers you, drains you, or disappears, don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Because in this retrograde, everyone's playing a role in your transformation. You don't get to skip the sacrifice anymore. Saturn's not interested in how much you want it. Saturn wants to know, what are you willing to lose for it? Because success right now doesn't come wrapped in inspiration. It comes wrapped in resistance, in fatigue, in uncomfortable decisions. And if you think you're going to bypass that with some half-hearted effort and a vision board, think again. Every dream has a price tag, and Saturn just turned it face up. This is the part where you realize that wishing, planning, and manifesting mean nothing without sweat, without discomfort, without sacrifice. You don't get the breakthrough and the excuse. You have to pick. You either sacrifice for your purpose, or you sacrifice your purpose. There is no third option. And it's not always obvious what the sacrifice is. Sometimes it's sleep. Sometimes it's approval. Sometimes it's the comfort of staying quiet when your voice could change everything. Sometimes it's letting go of a role you've played so well for so long that you forgot who you really are underneath it. Success now requires tension, discipline, repetition without reward at first. You'll have to move when no one is watching. Show up when motivation is dead. Execute when doubt is screaming. Saturn is putting weights on your spirit not to break you, but to build strength you didn't know you had. There will be days where everything inside you screams to go back to ease, to play it safe, to numb out. And that's when Saturn speaks the loudest. Keep going. This pain is proof you're close. You'll feel tempted to delay, to wait until it's the right time. But Saturn's retrograde is the right time because it forces you to drop the excuses and get honest about your work ethic, your focus, your priorities. There's no divine handout coming, just divine accountability. And if you do the work, if you pay the price in focus, in sacrifice, in relentless intention, Saturn delivers legacy, not just wins. Legacy, something that lasts, something you don't have to chase anymore. But the gate doesn't open for free. Saturn wants to know, how bad do you want it? And what are you finally willing to let go of to prove that you're ready? If you wait too long, the door will close permanently. Here's the most dangerous illusion Saturn is shattering right now, that you still have time. You think you're pacing yourself, playing it smart, waiting for the right moment. But Saturn doesn't reward hesitation. This retrograde is a countdown, not a delay. And the longer you stall, the tighter the window gets. Until one day, the door isn't closing, it's gone. There are signs everywhere, subtle, eerie, perfectly timed signs. That person you keep thinking about, that opportunity you keep pushing to next week, that inner urge that keeps rising at 2 a.m. whispering, "Do it now?" That's not noise, that's Saturn shaking you awake. Most people don't miss their destiny because they failed. They miss it because they froze. And here's the twist. This retrograde feels slow. It lulls you into thinking you've got wiggle room. You don't. Saturn is watching how you move when you think the clock isn't ticking. That project you're sitting on, that difficult conversation you keep dodging, that leap you know you're supposed to take, it won't wait forever. Think of this retrograde like a test you weren't told the date for. Every decision counts. Every delay has a cost. And while you're busy getting ready, the moment might already be fading. Some chances expire, not because they weren't meant for you, but because you weren't willing to meet them. Saturn isn't cruel. It just doesn't negotiate with indecision. There's someone watching this right now who's been waiting for a sign to move. This is your sign, not in some cosmic, poetic way. In a blunt, Saturn-style way, move, now, or miss it. And once it's gone, there's no begging the universe for a rewind. Saturn doesn't do replays, only receipts. So ask yourself, are you hesitating because it's not time? Or because deep down, you're scared it is? Because if you don't take that step soon, someone else will. And you'll be left with nothing but the echo of the chance you didn't take. The identity you built is a costume, and Saturn's about to rip it off. Everything you thought you were building, the title, the lifestyle, the reputation, Saturn is putting it under review. And not gently, not with a whisper, with a crack. One that splits the mask right down the middle, no matter how perfectly you've worn it. What's happening now isn't just an identity shift, it's a reckoning. That job you fought to get, but secretly hate? That dream you've been chasing for 5 years but no longer recognize yourself in? Saturn retrograde is flipping the mirror. It's making you look. Really look. Not at the photos you post, not the version you present to be the strong one or the successful one, but the raw, unfiltered you that shows up when no one's watching and everything's on fire. Saturn doesn't care who you've been pretending to be. It wants who you really are. This is when people begin to realize they've been living as a version of themselves that no longer exists. They've outgrown the personality, the path, the patterns, but they're still trying to force them to fit. And now Saturn's pulling the thread. It starts subtle. Disinterest, boredom, restlessness. Then it escalates. Misalignment, burnout, deep spiritual fatigue. Until finally, something snaps. You hit a wall and realize it's not just your life that's outdated, it's you. It's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough in disguise. You're not lazy, you're misaligned, you're not lost. You're being rerouted, you're not behind. You're being stripped down to start from something real. And that's the hardest part. The in-between. The part where who you used to be has dissolved, but who you're becoming hasn't arrived yet. This is identity death. It's uncomfortable, raw, disorienting. You feel like a blank slate that hasn't been rewritten yet. And you can't fake your way through it anymore. Saturn won't let you. If you try to go back to your old self, the door slams shut. If you try to push forward with no clarity, everything resists. So what's left? Stillness, surrender, brutal honesty. This is where Saturn does its deepest work, not when you're grinding harder, but when you're quiet enough to hear what your soul actually wants. When you finally stop asking, "How do I look?" and start asking, "Does this feel like me?" And don't be surprised if everything you once chased no longer excites you. You're not losing ambition, you're remembering truth. You're starting to notice that the applause doesn't feel as good as peace. That being respected isn't worth being disconnected from yourself. That chasing identity is exhausting, but embodying authenticity is effortless. This isn't about reinventing yourself. It's about unbecoming everything you were never meant to be. So if you feel like your life is crumbling, if your goals suddenly feel meaningless, if you can't tell what's next, pause. Because that chaos is sacred. That's Saturn clearing the stage for your real entrance. You're not falling apart, you're stepping out of costume. And what comes next is you, unfiltered, unmasked, undeniable. The messenger may be messy, but the message will be divine. Sometimes, the universe doesn't send wisdom in a soft voice or from a trusted source. It delivers it through someone you've judged, someone you've dismissed, someone whose life might look like a mess, whose words feel clumsy, whose energy grates on you, but who says something that slices straight through your illusions. This isn't a compliment wrapped in compassion. This is a truth that hits you like a slap in public, and the first instinct will be to reject it. But that's the point. Saturn doesn't care about politeness or credentials. It cares about impact. And during this retrograde, it's weaponizing unlikely messengers to wake you up in the most uncomfortable ways. You might hear something offhanded from a stranger, a troll online, a toxic ex, or a loudmouth at work. And what they say will trigger you. It'll sting, not because it's cruel, but because it's true. Not the whole truth, maybe, but enough of it to crack through your armor. That comment about your inconsistency, that jab at how you always play the victim, that uncomfortable laugh from someone when you try to sound more put together than you are. These aren't random. They're precision hits, delivered from people you never asked for insight from, but who are unknowingly channeling Saturn's agenda. Saturn doesn't need a perfect vessel. It only needs you to be ready to hear what you've been refusing to admit. The real test isn't about whether the person is right or wrong. It's whether you're strong enough to filter the message without letting the messenger throw you off. Can you pull truth out of the chaos? Can you be so committed to growth that even your least favorite person becomes your teacher for a moment? Because here's what most won't realize. The ones you resist the most are often the ones revealing where you're still not free. This retrograde is about breaking the illusion that you're only supposed to grow from safe, curated, agreeable spaces. Growth is raw now. It's inconvenient. It's messy. And it often shows up wrapped in ego, awkwardness, or even aggression. But if you can put your pride down for just 1 second, if you can breathe through the sting and ask, "Why did that hit me so hard?" you'll find the doorway Saturn's been trying to show you for months. Enlightenment doesn't always come in robes. Sometimes it comes in sarcasm, shade, or straight-up disrespect. And if you're wise enough to catch it, that is when you shift. Not just spiritually, but visibly. In how you show up, how you think, how you move. Let them mock. Let them underestimate. Let them talk. If their words carry your next level, you'd be a fool to ignore it. If you're still watching, I'd like to thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more, please consider clicking the subscribe button. Your support is very appreciated. Feel free to share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and subscribe for more insightful content.